It is June 11th, 2010, and we are here with Nina Thomas, Beth Weinhardt, and we're going to be interviewing Florence for a few minutes.
So, where were you born and where did you grow up?
Paterson, New Jersey, which is used to be called the Silk City of America. Now it's called the Armpit. But it was lovely. And I went to a private high school which was run by the Christian Reformed Church. And that was a wonderful experience, the best experience of my life.
Can you tell us why you joined the service and what was going on in your life at the time when you decided to join?
Well, when the wax came out, I wanted to join them. I would have had to lie about my age because you had to be 21. I was only 18. Well, but between the time I was 18 and 19, which I graduated from high school at 18, I kept wishing I could get in the service. So I worked in an airplane factory as an inspector. And I read in the paper one day, right in the middle of the work day, that the Marine Corps was taking women Marines at 19. I had just turned 19. I walked out, got on a train, went to New York, signed up, and they took me.
What year was that, Florence?
42, because 41 was December 7th when the war started.
So 42.
Yeah. I actually signed up in January, but they didn't call me out until April. Then I went to boot camp at a great big college in New York City because they didn't have the Marine Corps set up at Camp Lejeune yet. After about 3 months, they graduated us and sent us down to Camp Lejeune.
What college were you at in New York? Was it Hunter?
Yes. Yes, Hunter College.
What was the training like there? What did they do?
Lots of close order drill. Lots of hearing a siren and jumping out of bed, getting full uniform, and go down and stand in platoon formation. Lots of studies. Boy, if you didn't know the 10 rules of being a Marine, you were dead. You were out.
Do you know those rules today?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What are they?
I can't say them now. Come on, I'm 87. What do you want? So a lot of things I can say, like the Lord's Prayer, but I can't say the rules.
So when they were training you on the 10 rules, did they do other kinds of vocational training other than the close order
No,
drill?
because that comes later when you get moved to Camp Lejeune, because that's where all the schools were.
Okay.
And I went up the ladder fast. I went from private to private first class, corporal to sergeant in about 3.5 months. And I was one of the heads of the special detachment schools.
Wow, that's impressive.
But that isn't my basic job in the service. My basic job is classified.
What was it like for women? Did you work with men also in the service at the time?
Sure.
Well, what was it like for women? Was it hard, or do you remember how they treated you or anything like that?
They treated us fine. They had a nickname for us, which I won't repeat. But they treated us fine. Yeah. We were, of course, in a different section of the camp. In fact, back then, black people were in a different section of the camp, which I didn't approve at all. Also, back then, you're not supposed to be married to a Marine, which I didn't know when I married a Marine.
Oh.
Because a lot of the girls were married to soldiers and sailors, and they were off somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could be married in the Marine Corps, have 5 kids, and still be in the Marine Corps.
Right, it's all changed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they didn't care who you married.
No. But, so when you got married, you didn't know about the rule.
I didn't.
So you just...
So I never said anything. I know we kept it quiet.
Okay.
He got stationed down there. And so I would get to see him all the time. Go to the...
So he was someone you knew
club.
from your youth then?
Yeah.
Yeah, you grew up together. Yeah. So who joined the Marines first, him or you?
Him.
Okay.
In fact, his father was congressman from Iowa.
Do you have any other stories from the service that you want to talk about, or anything that...
Yeah, I did a foolish thing once when I was first down at Camp Lejeune. I had this group of women I was trying to teach how to march right. And I was rough on them. And if you would know about Camp Lejeune, there's a river goes through it. And Camp Lejeune used to be a big swamp. Mm-hmm. And they drained it and have a river through it. It's called New River. Well, I had them out in the country, and I was marching them. And I gave them a right turn. And the first 5 rows were in the river. I had to scream, "Oh!" about face. I never said a thing, no excuse, nothing. They thought it was part of the training, so I let it go.
Tell us something about posing for the
okay.
poster, how that came about.
I was going about my business, and somebody said, "You've got orders on your desk." So I went in, opened up, said, "You will appear in Washington, D.C. at Naval Headquarters to pose for some pictures to be used in advertising." Well, I was surprised, but what had happened? When I was in boot camp at Hunter, the fellow who took my ID picture was joking with me when he did it. I'll show you the picture that came out. And I gave a great big grin. Well, when a recruiting officer came up from Philadelphia, she was looking at new pictures of new people. She took my picture, took it down, enlarged it, and put it in the window of a recruiting office. And so this artist saw it. I went to Washington for a week. And it isn't an actual photo. It's just that I posed for it, and he drew it. He put in the color hair he wanted, red. You know, goes better with the green uniform. And then after that, about 2 months later, I got orders, right on camp though, and they were making a movie, The Salute to the Marines, with, you will not remember her, Marilyn Maxwell. She was tall, slim, and blonde. So I was her stand-in. There's a whole page on the back of Life magazine, or Look or Life. A cigarette ad for Camel cigarettes, with me up on my knee in an airplane with a 75-pound camera. Believe me, that was hot. It was at Paris Island. And then a picture of me walking with a lieutenant holding a cigarette. And then one picture of me in an office.
So how did the cigarette ad come about, Florence? Because you were in the military?
Because I had posed for other things, so when the Campbells came in looking for somebody.
In uniform, too?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when it was over, they knew that I had modeled in New York. Mm-hmm. So they offered me a $200 bill, which was like getting $2,000 today. And I gave it back and said, "No, this is all in the line of duty. Guess you know where that $2,000 went." His pocket. So he gave me 2 cartons of Camels, which I didn't smoke. So I gave them to the kids in the barracks.
What did you do after the service?
Oh, I left when I was pregnant. My first child was born on a naval base. But what's strange about it, I never knew I was pregnant that whole time. And I wore my tailored uniform up until the last day.
Oh my gosh.
Tailored by Lord Dealer, so you know it fit.
Wow.
No, I have tons of pictures of me. You would never know I was pregnant. I didn't know it.
So you went into labor, and that's when you figured out you were pregnant?
I would have broke, but I thought I was having my period.
Oh, my word.
Oh my gosh.
Because they said sometimes when you move from a southern climate or a northern climate to a southern climate, that will happen temporarily.
Wow. So it wasn't until that happened and then you went to the hospital?
Yeah, well, finally, the girls that lived with me said, she got to see a doctor, something's going on. So I went, and they looked at me and put me in a bed, and they were going to come and check me out later. And I said, I called the nurse, and I said, I better see the doctor right now. Something weird's happening.
Oh,
so
my word.
I talk to him, he puts me up on a table, examines me, and calls the ambulance.
That's wild.
And he was 7 pounds, 12 ounces. I've always been very active all my life, and some of the kids in school, high school, used to call me Miss Flat Gut. I was concave.
So once you gave birth, then that was the
Yeah.
end of the Marines.
Marines. Except I joined the Women Marines Reserve Association. I still am a member.
Okay. So after you had the baby, then they just kind of said to you, well, and in those days, that was just a given.
Yeah, they
were
put
not.
on their discharge pregnant without official permission.
Did you move back to New Jersey at that point with the baby, or did you stay there by the
No,
base?
I went back to New Jersey with the baby.
Okay.
They let my husband take me home. They gave me what do you call it, a compartment in the train with everything in it. It's very nice of them.
Then you were a stay-at-home mom with the baby, or?
But I went back to Mosley. I did that for quite a while. And then the GI Bill came out, which, by the way, my first husband's father was the father of the GI Bill. And in Sandusky, in the Ohio Veterans Home, or the museum part, there's a big picture of him standing behind Franklin Delano Roosevelt while he signs it.
What is his name?
Paul Cunningham. He was congressman from the district around Des Moines. Oh, it's funny, I've only been up there twice. But the second time I went, there was a man there with two men. And the one man comes up to me and says, "Are you the farmer Florence Fawley?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "This is wonderful." And he reached up and he kissed me. My husband's standing right next to me.
Whoa!
But I found out that he was a general.
Where did you go to school on the GI Bill?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
I went to a beauty school. I thought that would be a good, solid thing I could always use. And then I went I graduated first honors. So I got to go to M. Louis, hair designer in New York. And then Mr. Louis, he said, "Let me do your hair one day, just for the heck of it. Be my model." So I did. And as soon as he got finished, he sent me off. I was back in modeling business again. But the best thing guy I ever met was my husband, who we have our 63rd this June the 30th.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
And you met through the service then, Florence?
You know what's funny? I met him first.
Really?
When I graduated from high school, my girlfriend and I went to Atlantic City for a week. Her one relative had a boarding house. It was right a block from the ocean. So we went. But you see, all the big hotels were taken over by the armed services because they sent their men there that for rest and recovery, or if they had lost limbs or blinded, everything. Well, my husband at that time was a drill sergeant. He's Air Force. And he would be marching his guys up and down the beach. My girlfriend and I would be sitting on the beach. So the next thing you know, He's up in his bedroom window watching down and whistling. So I said, go on down. So I came down, we got to know each other. We had a lot in common. But then he went to flight school and he flew away. And he flew 64 missions. That's unusual.
That's a lot.
In a fighter plane.
That's a lot. After the war, how many years was it after the war before you met him or found each other again?
Well, he was one of the ones I wrote to.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So when I wrote to him, my husband had been killed. I got the sergeant appeared at the front door. I'll never guess what day it was. Thanksgiving. He appeared to tell us that my husband had passed away. Some sniper got him and another guy. He tied in the tree.
That was in the Pacific.
Of course, then all I wanted to do was go over there myself and kill everybody. But there's not one day that I don't remember him. But as time goes by, you recover. So when I wrote to him, my husband had been killed. His letters came more frequently. First they were sympathy, and then they started to change. And then 3 years later, I got one that said he would be home.
Okay.
And will I meet him? So I did. I went up to Westerville, Massachusetts, Connecticut is it? And I stayed one night. They had a big dance, and the next day he got on a train with me and to accompany me home. But while we were on the train, he started to talk about his GI insurance and that I would get so-and-so. I mean, he didn't even say, will you marry me? No. I told him when he left me, don't come back unless you have a convertible. Well, back then cars were rationed.
Oh, yeah.
But it just so happened that he had a good boyfriend. His father sold cars. And he had one that had been returned. And it was a convertible Hudson.
Oh,
Huge, the collector's items.
yeah.
All yellow leather. Gorgeous. So he pulls up on that, and I loaded the back seat up with my kid and all my shoes. Went to Maryland and had the Reverend Francis Perkins marry us.
Fabulous.
And then I sent telegrams to everybody saying, just got married, glad you're not here. Let me tell you a little story. It's just kind of sad. When I was in New Jersey, I immediately joined the American Legion. And I became the sergeant at arms. Then they sent me to Atlantic City when they had their convention to represent the area I was in. And when I got down there, they treated me really nice. They made me the head of their parade. It was me and my white uniform and the color guard behind me. Then everybody else came.
Wow.
Well, there was still all these poor guys sitting on the benches over the stores on the boardwalk. And it was Miss America week. So down on the beach were all these bathing beauties, you know. And they were frolicking and all. And these guys were looking at them. And I came along. And one of them raised himself up. I saw him. He only had one leg. I'll never forget it. Because I got tears in my eyes immediately. He yelled out. He had a megaphone next to him. And he yelled out, there's the real Miss America. Isn't that wonderful?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I finished the parade like,
Wow.
That's beautiful.
That's wonderful.
yeah,
So when did you guys move to Westerville?
50-some years ago. Westerville was 3,000 people, I think. My husband was still in the service, and they gave him the ROTC unit at Otterbein. He was the head of it. Did you know about me in the Buckeye Track Club?
Mm-mm.
No? I had it for 17 years. Right here in Westerville. Girls, ages 4 to 18. 64 girls. We made the Junior Olympics. I flew to Kansas. I came back with a gold.
Wow.
That was fun because all the time I was doing that, I was also working for Dr. Foltz. I was office manager.
Office manager?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my daughter worked for me. I've had a really good life. Interesting. Met a lot of interesting people. Met lots of movie stars.
Who?
I don't think you remember them. You know who Walter Slezak was? I was in New York. I was hailing a cab, and this cab pulls out, and he says, "Just a minute." And Walter Slezak got out with his wife.
Wow.
He gave me a big grin. He saw I had my Conover Cover Girl box with me.
Mm-hmm.
He pointed at it, he smiled, went on his way. Oh, Jane Russell.
Ooh.
I've got a book over there. Look what it says here. And that's me. The other one.
To flow my double, God bless, Jane Russell. Wow.
You know, she had the reputation of, because of that movie, of being kind of trampish.
Right.
She was the most religious person I ever knew.
Wow.
When I came to Westerville, I wanted to go to the American Legion and join up, since I had been in the American Legion, had been an officer and a state representative in New Jersey. So I walked in and said, "Here I am," I presented all my papers. And the person who was in charge looked at me and said, "Sorry, we don't take women. You can be one of the," I forget what they call the women, their wives. You could come in as your husband's wife if he's a member of the American Legion. I said, "No, he isn't a veteran. He's still on duty." That was the end of it. I never went back. That's about the only thing that happened in Westerville that I didn't like. Everything else I loved. I was Mrs. Westerville.
Really?
Yeah. And I went to the regionals, and I got first runner-up, and you won't believe why. I folded the napkin in the wrong direction. That's great.
No.
They took 2 points off, and this lady from Sunbury won it. We had to do things that were outrageous. Just imagine trying to do this. I had to cook a ham and what do you call it, a sponge cake? All at once.
In the same oven?
It worked. I don't know why, but it worked. We had to do everything. We had to iron. We had to show something that we sewed. So when the people who made me, the gas company is the one who made me Mrs. Westerville, when they came over to see, I said, "Well, not right now, but every drapery in this house was made by me." And then I brought out this one evening gown I made. He said, "Oh, you got it."
So, Florence, approximately when would this have been?
We came here in 58.
Okay, so sometime after that, then.
I've never heard of that contest having any of those types of things in it. I've only heard.
Right.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Well, we had to do all that too.
prance around in dresses and things,
Yeah.
and then also cook again.
And then bake this cake and make this ham, all the while dressed to the T. Oh, I'll tell you the other thing I almost blew it on. I made the sponge cake, and I did a whipped cream outing frosting. It was very pretty. I had some Dalton China little flowers, roses and little violets. I still have them. I decorated the cake with it. One of the judges thought, oh, yum, grabbed one, put it in her mouth. One of my little roses doesn't have a leaf. But to lose my 2 points.
No.
Because you didn't fold the napkin right.
What did I get? I got something. Oh, I got a silver chafing dish. And something that the gas company makes out in front of the house is since gone. I forget what it was. A trellis, maybe.
That's great, Florence. Thank you. That's super.